She's funny, she's smart, she craves chocolate every day, and she is the Greek goddess of comedy. Here is your host, Ellen Karas.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Karas' Comedy Corner. My name is Ellen Karas, and we are recording via Zoom. This is, I'm not going to say the new norm anymore. I'm just going to say this is it. When we go back to the studio, then maybe I'll say the new norm. I don't even know what's going on. I just can't wait to see a human being across the table other than my husband. But I'm very excited. We have a great guest today. But before we get started, we have to do our ads. Our first sponsor is Baywalk Marketing. Go to their website, baywalk.net, for all of your advertising and marketing needs. They can help you with any kind of flyer. They can help you with your demographics. They can help you analyze your business to see where you should be advertising and how you should be advertising. They're also experts in the Greek community. Go to their website, HollywoodGreeks.com and HellenicFestivals.org to find out where there is a Greek festival near you. And also our other sponsor is Select Flex. What is it? It's an orthotic. What's an orthotic? You put it in your shoe. It's also called an insert. Why do I need those? Well, your entire body needs it. It needs it for your foot support and ankle and knees and back and hips. Why are these different than anything else that you would see over the counter? Because they have an adjustability in the arch. There's a dial. You can make it firm, extra firm, extra firm, depending on what your needs are. Go to their website, selectflex.com, selectflex.com. And for Karas Comedy Corner listeners, there is a 25% discount. If you type in the code FAMILY25, FAMILY 25, you get a 25% discount. I have these in every pair of my shoes, and I would not even think about working out without them. Go to their website, selectflex.com. This is the best invention since suitcase on wheels. Okay, I'm very, very excited because one of my favorite comedians is here. I'm fangirling. I'm nervous. I'm usually not nervous, but I'm sweating because I have been a fan of this woman for a very, very long time. And I remember seeing her. I had knew who she was because I had seen her on Comedy Central, but then I had seen her on the first season of Last Comic Standing, and she was absolutely amazing. I loved her story. She was a woman. She was a single mom at the time, and very funny, very smart material. And then, of course, years later, I got to meet her. I got to work with her once, which was awesome. But my mother-in-law is a huge fan, and one day called me up to tell me how this amazing comedian came to entertain them at their condo. So she's got a huge fan base. She's been on Last Comic Standing again, first season. She was in the finals. Fantastic. Loved her. And then toured around with the other comics on that first season. She's been on The Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson. She's been on David Letterman, Comedy Central, The View. She travels all over the world. And if you haven't, after this show, you need to go and listen to her TED Talk, which is incredible. It's so impressive. I love it so much, and I want to talk about that. But without further ado, one of my favorite people, Cory Kahaney.
Thank you so much. Very nice intro.
Oh,
yes.
I'm a huge fan. I really am. I'm fangirling. I'm schwitzing.
Good.
You and I have, we've got to work together years ago. I don't know if you remember. I'll just let you know it was at Levity in West Nyack.
Okay.
It was quite a long time ago because you have a daughter from your first husband, and who's grown now, but your son, who you have with your second husband, at the time was a little baby because you had a car seat in the back.
Wow.
And yeah, exactly. And
although that, how long everything's changed, Ellen. I mean, they're in car seats till they're like 8 years old now.
Right.
It's like ridiculous. I feel like somebody got together and they're like, let's tell the world that kids need to be in car seats until they go to college. so that we can keep selling car seats. Don't you feel that way?
Yeah,
I mean,
well, my goal is to get to my car seat weight. That's really what I'd like to do because this quarantine ain't doing me any favors. Let me tell you.
no, me neither.
All we
Me
got
neither.
left. All we got left is chewing. That's the only activity I have left. But I really, and I meant that. I mean, I really am a huge fan of yours. And I don't even want to say, oh, a lot of us women are a huge fan of yours. Like a lot of comics are huge fan of yours. So like we're part of the New York comedy community, right? There's like sort of like the two comedy communities, and there's all these people in the middle, obviously, that work very, very hard. But there's like the New York and LA, and it's you are a mainstay here. I mean, you travel, you do a lot of also privates and corporates and clubs and just private events, and you are so well respected by so many people. You're so funny, you're so on point. You're really like the epitome of a
All
comic.
right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And you write
Yeah.
and you coach as well, which is great, because you have a lot really to teach people. But I have to ask you first, are you from New Jersey or Long Island?
I am from Manhattan.
Okay. You grew up, you went to private
Born
school?
at Mount Sinai Hospital.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, in New York City. A lot of the Long Island jokes are about my extended family.
Okay.
And my husband has a law practice in Long Island. My husband grew up in Long Island, and his father had a law practice in Long Island, and he does the reverse commute because he is such he so doesn't want to do yard work. He will do anything. Seriously. He just wants a New York City apartment.
Right.
So he can. I also think it's just more his approach to life. I just think he's a city dweller. So when I hooked up with my husband, I was like, it's a long commute every day. We could move to the east side because I live on the west side, and he's commuting to Long Island. He goes, no, I like the Upper West Side, and I don't know. So there's a Long Island connection, but ultimately, I'm really a Manhattan girl.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Okay. You know what? I think we all, because people think I'm from Long Island or Queens, so we give off sort of.
Yeah.
I grew up in Manhattan for the most part, and I give off like a Long Island byproduct as well. So I think maybe that's what it is. And we work on Long Island, and it's because it's just an extension of New York. So maybe that's what I was thinking. But my husband is from Long Island too, so it's all all sort of almost blended together. So you grew up in Manhattan, as did I. What neighborhood did you grow up in?
Upper East.
Upper East Side. Okay. And so comedy, the Strip was up here, and at the time Catch a Rising Star, and
but I didn't start, I was very late to the party. I started at 29, and at the time my fangirl was Joy Behar. She was really the only person that I could identify with, because she was also a single mom. She also started late. I believe she was also 29. Probably I made it by the cutoff. I mean, I do feel very strongly that my success would not have been possible if I started any later than that. It's such a cruel thing. Women don't have a long time. You have to establish yourself by the time you're 31.
Do you think that still holds true now?
I do, unless you're going to really think outside the box. Like if you want the traditional comedy career where you work your way up in the clubs, and you start with the B clubs, and then you want to get to the A clubs. I think, what you have to also look at it from the standpoint of what's in it for the club owner to pass a 40-year-old woman. What are they going to bring to the table? Are they going to bring a comedy special? Are they going to bring a sitcom? It's very hard to break in when you're too old. Now, that being said, if you're older and you're starting out and you want to do a one-person show and you have an amazing ability to network and self-promote, you can do other things. You can also, like Robin Fox is a great example of someone who started a bit later, but she made her focus on privates and PTAs and synagogues and fundraisers and things like that. But she struggles with certain it's hard for her to get credits, like television credits.
Right.
And unfortunately, that's how they measure you when you're trying to get paid work.
Mm-hmm. So I can totally relate to starting out later, because that's what I did as well.
Yeah.
And I came in at a time where, comedy started to change a little bit, and I've seen, and now I've seen changes as well. So there was still a club circuit, but it's much different now. And I think it also depends on what you want your comedy career to be. So when you started, it was a little bit more of the traditional clubs. There were a lot more clubs around as well. And what you wanted it, Comedy Central, obviously, it's still a big thing. The late night shows are still a big thing. But like you said, I think it depends on really what your goal is. I've also changed it to the way, like with Robbins as well, as I do a lot of privates at this point. People always say, like, what club? And it's like, I don't really do clubs,
Right.
So,
we should let the audience know, if you want to see a really great comic, you should look up Robin Fox. Just because we're talking about her, and we don't, we're not. I think it's RobinFoxComedy.com, but she's very funny, and that's who we're talking about. All right.
Yeah, she's terrific. But how about when you were starting out? And I'm sorry, this is like a cliche, but as a woman, because it's 2020, and
I started in 92, so I mean, I can.
It feels like 63. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I'm not quite sure how much we've evolved.
Right, I know.
I know. And I hate to keep saying that, because then you sound whiny and this, but it's like, but it's the truth. It's this perception. I don't understand. There's been so many other ceilings that have managed to be broken, thank God. But this one, for some reason, is like it's cement.
But I think a lot of people are going to argue with you and say, how can you say that with the success of Amy Schumer and Whitney Cummings and Natasha Leggero and Nikki Glaser? There's a lot of women you can cite that have broken through. And, it's funny because that whole list, I don't know if I've noticed, but that whole list came through one club. Mm-hmm. They all came through the Comedy Cellar. Mm-hmm. So if you were a comedian that came through the Comedy Cellar and moved up there, that's probably your best bet in terms of sort of breakout star status. Mm-hmm. It was not a club that I worked at the Comedy Cellar, but it wasn't a great fit for me for a number of reasons. So yeah, and not only that, but I don't have a thick skin. I could never do the roasts. You know what I mean? Like, I never said I wanted to do the roast. I never signed up to do the roast. Honestly, anytime somebody, said nasty things about me, I would be, under a blanket crying for 3 days. And I don't know that that's the only way to get noticed, but a lot of the women that I just mentioned broke out by doing the roasts.
Right.
And I'm not gonna, deny it. It wasn't something I felt I could handle.
Right. I'm the same way as you. I couldn't do it. And I like to think I have a thick skin for other things, so I think, but in that area, I agree with you. I couldn't get up there. I couldn't say some of the things that they said. Again, great girls,
Yeah.
Nobody realizes what goes on behind the scenes and how hard it is to even get to that point. But you rattled off names that everybody knows, and that's great. And again, I love all of them, but there's so many more women comics. And again, this is not about whining. It's just factual. There's so many more women comics that are out there that are just, don't get that kind of same due. And it's frustrating. And sometimes, and for the most part, I don't find it with the male comics, or like our peers. I find it with the people that are booking, the producers or the bookers.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't see it as much as that, as the male comics keeping us down. So just just give us the sort of the.
I don't think the male comics are without any responsibility, though.
In what way? In what way?
Well, I mean, you know, what strikes me is, as that popped into my head, and I'm very happy about this. But, you know, Dave Attell was never a great social media guy. He was never a self-promoter. You know, I as a huge Dave Attell fan, I watched it. You know, I watched the trajectory of, say, Louis C.K. and the trajectory of Dave. And Louis C.K. knew how to use YouTube, and he knew how to use social media, and he knew how to appeal to the internet. And so he was able to pop through very, very strongly. And that wasn't Dave Attell's strength. But Jeffrey Ross loves Dave Attell. So Jeffrey Ross, with his, you know, with his fame, was able to take him and, you know, do something for him. I don't know that I see that from female comics enough.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Sort of
So
you know.
Yeah, and I would love to see. That isn't to say Amy Schumer didn't do a lot for women comics. I mean, in her little, you know, coterie, she brought everyone with her, and I applaud her for that. I mean, I think she lost my number, but that's fine. You know what I'm saying? Like, I give her a pass because she took everyone in her circle, and it was really admirable. We have to do that more. We really do. As women, we have to do that more. And I think male comics have always done it for each other.
Interesting. And I mean, I love your perspective. You've seen a lot. You've been around also to see so many different metamorphoses of comedy, you know, from live to all of a sudden taking everything online to social media. So it's like when I got into it, there wasn't YouTube and social media like there was now. There was web, you know,
right.
Have a website.
Me neither.
So, and then, I mean, and now, you know, that's changed. And as we know in sort of because people always think about comedy as clubs, and that's fine. And I get that, but I know for me, most of my work is private work. So that's why I always laugh when people go, so what club do you play at? You know, and it's like, well, I don't know, you know, like not really. And then they look at you, but a lot of the clubs, as we know, will book based on how many followers they have. And
yes, that's the new thing, right?
Yeah. So, and you know, I understand it's show business and you have to make money, and I get all that. I was an accountant. I get all that. But it's just a little frustrating, you know, when you're trying to get work, and now we're in this whole other zone of I don't even know what, some apocalypse that's going on. But before we get into all of that, I do have to ask you though. So you were a young mom, you had a daughter, you were married. What were you doing before you did comedy?
I was a catering manager for hotels.
Oh,
I did
okay.
weddings and events. And I came to that. I was a chef for a long time, and but I actually was good front of the house. So I just kept getting asked to do things front of the house, and you know, having the food background sort of let me sort of straddle both those worlds. So I was a catering manager for hotels, and wasn't that different really, because you know, every night I was putting on an event, which is very similar to a show. But I would see these people come in, and, you know, like a musician or whatever, and they'd come in, they'd work an hour and they'd leave. And I was very attracted to that schedule. It's interesting because when I started doing stand-up, it was on a dare. Everyone that worked for me was a singer, a dancer, or a comedian. And at one point I was just surrounded by comedians. So I was dating a comic. My bartender, my number one bartender worked at Catch, and one of my waiters worked at Dangerfields, and it was just sort of converging in on me. And when I broke up with the comic, I was finally willing to try stand up. I mean, I had been watching this comedian for, you know, and the audiences for about a year, and I was like, I could do that. So
that's amazing.
You know, and I wanted it to, I thought it would be a hobby, because who wants to give up a nice corporate job with a corner office as a single mom with the Manhattan rent?
Right.
It was not a good choice for me. I really didn't have a choice once I decided that this is what I was meant to do.
Mm-hmm. That's so interesting. Did you go to off to college after high school?
Culinary school.
You went to culinary school. Oh my, I have so much respect for you. I'm a catastrophe in the kitchen, and I'm Greek. It's embarrassing. But that's so great. And very interesting, because chefs have then morphed into celebrity chefs and have gotten TV shows. So the chef business, I mean, food, like you can't go through 22 channels without some kind of a food channel, and as
Right.
we know, there's been so many chefs that have made it. They're like movie stars and television stars.
And
So,
believe me, I've tried. I do not click in the culinary comedy. I have never been able to morph it.
I mean,
And I think it's because I take food too seriously. Like I am so. If you look at my Instagram, it's mostly food pictures of finished products and stuff. I think I just have such a respect for food, and then I have a very hard time making fun of myself with you have to really have a levity about stuff in comedy, and I don't know that I have it. Maybe it's changing now because with all the Zoom stuff. I'm doing my first food show on Zoom on Monday, so we'll see if I can make that transition a little bit better. I've just never been able to, like, I was on Next Food Network Star, and it was a train wreck. I was the first one they sent home. And everybody was like, they said she was a comedian. She's not funny, but she's a really good, whatever. I was also the oldest person on there. So, it's
what
hard to
does
say.
that do with it?
But, that's also on me, Ellen. If I had been really like passionate and I made videos every week of me cooking and being funny, like Bert Kreischer, I mean, I'm so incredibly jealous of him because it was so smart. I don't, if everyone knows who we're talking about, Bert Kreischer is a very funny comedian, and he has a food show, and he's passionate about food, and he has a following as a foodie. And, I mean, I'm not jealous of his of other aspects of his career because we're both comics, but the food aspect, I give him a lot of credit. He did a great job with that.
Well, I think there's room for more, and I think comedy and food is.
No, I know, but you gotta. I like to do things. I want to do things at a high level. You need the microphone, and you need the camera, and you need the lighting, and oh God, it does overwhelm me a little bit. And I think when you get to a certain age, right, you wanna do what you do well and make money at it. And stand up is what I do really well, and I make money at it. And so I have to find something that gets me excited.
I related to every word you just said. I think too, we come to a point where it's like, what else do you want from me?
Yes, right. I was like, somebody last week said, okay, listen, we're gonna do the podcast on Zoom, but we want to record it in Caster for the audio, and can you have this, and I need you to have this microphone. And I was like, I don't think I'm not getting paid, and this is way too much for me to learn. I've learned enough. Okay, I got Gmail and I know how to do Zoom. That's it. Not good enough? Go screw yourself. It's too much. These things, the TikTok and now Reels. What is this? I can't.
Right.
There's got to be a limit. I'm telling you right now. Mark my words. If a baby boomer shoots someone, what preceded that shooting is a millennial saying, all you have to do is download the app.
Right. I could totally see that, because I do have violent fascinations when people start talking about downloading an app.
Another app. How many apps?
And I get it. Oh my God, the videos, I get it. And when this whole pandemic, so we're recording, we're still officially in the pandemic because, as far as I'm concerned, as long as comedy clubs and venues and people are still eating in the middle of the street, and Broadway is closed. We're still in a pandemic, okay?
Absolutely.
Until all that opens up, this is not normal. But I remember when we started, we're like, okay, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do a video every day, and I'm gonna set it up. I'm gonna do a 5-minute talk show, and pandemic with Ellen Karras. I had all these fantasies, these delusions of grandeur.
Oh my God! And they
I
tell
can
you
really do this.
oh, not 5 minutes. Nobody will watch 5 minutes. You got to do 90 seconds. 90 seconds. 90 seconds is too long. Do 50 seconds. 50 seconds is too long. No, 15 seconds. 15 seconds.
I can't.
Are you serious? Are you fucking serious?
And I thought I would take a bath every night, but that's not happening. Like no goals. Okay. I can't stand these people. They're still counting the days of the pandemic. Like day 149, I just planted cilantro in my garden. It's like, I haven't even dusted the bedroom. Like I have pictures on the floor. I started the picture project, I still have pictures, hard copy picture. I'm with you, and I feel the same way, and you've been doing it longer, and I mean that with the utmost respect, and you just want to get the booking, get hired, you're going to go, you're going to kill it, you're going to do your job, you're going to do the best, you're a professional, you know what to do, and that's it, and all this extraneous stuff. We don't mind Facebook, we don't mind some Instagram, a little bit of this. I mean, and then, okay, so you need an assistant. Well, that's a whole, now you're talking about a whole, like a staff. Like, yeah, okay, I need a staff. Well, who's going to pay for that? I mean, right. I agree with you.
And then I don't want to do anything on a low level of quality,
right?
Because nobody will take you seriously if you're doing something, that's slipshod. So that's the other thing. If I don't know what I'm doing, then I get paralyzed about trying to create something in the modality because I don't want it to be low quality.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's been a thing. I have to say though, because I have been doing stand-up still, because people, thank God, still hire me to perform, in this form, I am learning the tricks of Zoom. Like I've learned, certain jokes won't work. Long format jokes don't work. I've learned how to connect with an audience. I have tricks of ways I can, especially like if you have a large group, 200 devices or more, you cannot unmute. And so I've learned how to do it where I can engage the crowd, and I have little tricks. So I have to say, I have learned that new skill set. Mm-hmm. That's enough. No, I think it's enough. God,
I'm completely in agreement with you. I did my first Zoom comedy show about 2 weeks after when this lockdown happened here, and it was a family in the Hamptons, and they just wanted to have some entertainment. They were going crazy, and it was like not even 2 weeks into it. So I don't know what's going on. I can't even imagine what this family is like now, and I remember it was like, first of all, they had a magician before me. And so then I go on, they had they talked about, they ordered basically like a Thanksgiving dinner. So they have the Thanksgiving dinner, they have a magician for an hour. Then they wanted me at 9:30. And they were like down in the family room. The connection sucked. The dog is walking by. They all had like their feet up. I mean, like their bare feet up. It was like the weirdest thing. And I remember I just sort of, turned it on, flipped the switch, did my thing. It was over. And I was just like, I'm not going to make it out of this thing. I'm not. And then, but you find your rhythm, and then you're so grateful that you're getting hired. So it's gotten better. And then I've done some comics that have just sort of put on shows, which is great. And it's great practice because it's just sort of like helps you with all that. But look, I'm with you. Even doing the podcast, I mean, as much as I'm so enjoying talking to you, but I would have loved us to be at the podcast studio at the comic strip, which is because we had started talking about this a while ago, and it's like, but look, this is where we're at right now, and I don't know when we're going to get out of this thing, because the goalpost seems to keep on moving. And I'm all for safety, and I'm all for being healthy. And look, I try my best. You know what I mean? The eating, the working out, like whatever I need to do to kind of keep my immune system up and all that. And I'm try to be a good citizen and wear the mask and all that. But my God, it's not like this thing is going to go to zero. I mean, we got to get to a point where, we need to open up and just start, with precautions and just to sort of start life along.
Yeah, but I think we're going to be one of the last things to come out. Everyone's like, oh, but comedy's so low maintenance. You just need a mic and, and speakers and an amp. But here's you and I do our money gigs are, associations and fundraisers and things like that. And I don't know that they're going to happen for a while.
And those are usually planned way ahead of time. So, we get booked 9 months ahead of time. So now the 2021 planning has been done, it's off the table. So I know, I can't even think about it. But what, so what, how it's been months now. So like you said, you've managed to do some Zoom, have you done any live shows? I've actually done a couple of live shows. Have you been able to do any live shows?
I did a couple in Central Park.
Mm-hmm.
For Stand Up New York, I did one. And I am doing my first one with me, quote, headlining on the 22nd. But I'm up in the Berkshires. I'm going to do it in West Stockbridge. There's a venue that has an outdoor, like an amphitheater, and they've got like cocktail tables, and they're all 7 to 8 feet away from the stage, and then they're spaced, and it's carry in, carry out. You bring your own food, and but they are charging. I was surprised, that I'm going to command a $25 a person ticket, but the woman assured me, she goes, people are so hungry to go out and have an evening, and they're not spending anything on dinner, so
right.
They're very happy to pay it. So I'm going to do my first one a week from Saturday. Mm-hmm. And I think our mutual friend, do you know Adam Mueller? Adam Mueller?
No,
he's going to come up and youngish, not young in years, but definitely young on the comedy scene. He's going to come up and open for me, and I'm excited about that. But I mean, it's not. I'm making zero. When you have 40 people, how much money can you make?
Right.
You know what I mean? I got to split the door. So there you go. I mean, I'll be lucky if I make $300.
I did actually a private birthday party for an Orthodox Jewish family in Borough Park. And the conversation was hilarious because as the daughter kept talking, it was like, we've already, what does your father do? It was like, oh, he works in a nursing home. So, and this is a few months ago. So he works in a nursing home. It was Borough Park, which as we know, was a very high infected area. This whole thing. And I'm just like, and then she goes, but listen. And I said, I offered to do it Zoom. And she's like, well, we really would like it. It's my mom's 60th and we'll social distance and we have a backyard and all this and whatever. And she's like, if you're not comfortable, I'm like, I'll do it. So I was so desperate. And I have to tell you, it was so much fun. And one of the things they liked about me was I was on Mrs. Maisel. I play a waitress. So I've done it 2 seasons. So it was all this whole Maisel kind of thing.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah. So I have to tell you though, and mentally though, it was so good. And they were wonderful. And by the way, the woman was 60. She had 13 kids, 39 to 13. And 13 kids. I know. I can't. I was like, where's the husband? I'm like, you didn't get 2 seconds to have a cup of coffee. This woman didn't get to sit down to rest. So anyway, they were great. I mean, squeaky clean, of course, which was fine. But so I did that. And then I had done a restaurant out in Long Island. But I mean, we're ready. And the thing is, what I'm worried about is at some point, the nice weather in the Northeast is going to go away. And it's going to, all depends on if we have the Indian summer type of thing, but October can get quite chilly. So I'm not quite sure what we're going to do when that's over with. But I'm with you. So what is your sense? And we're going to veer a little bit. What's your sense about all this? The pandemic, the virus. I mean, are you like a vaccine waiting for the vaccine, drugs, whatever? How are you feeling about it?
Well, I mean, I'm optimistic about everything. I'm optimistic about a vaccine. I think we have a better shot at the more accessible rapid tests.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that'll change a lot of things. I mean, if we can, that test that they're developing in Israel, where you just breathe into something and in 60 seconds you have the result, that could change a lot. I mean, that could almost let people go back to the Broadway theaters,
It's funny you said Israel, because from the very beginning, I was like, who's going to find a cure? Israel.
Yeah, but you know what? I don't think they're ahead of the pack on the vaccine. I think they're ahead of the pack on the testing, on the rapid testing. I don't have high hopes for the Russian vaccine that they said is out. I mean,
I posted something the other day, and I was like, take the Russian vaccine made in Russia. I wouldn't take it if it was made in Queens. Like a vaccine, that's like a big deal. It's funny. There's sort of like different factions of this whole thing. Like everything else, this is polarized as well. There's the this isn't even real. There's the
I know
terrorism. I'm probably somewhere sort of in the middle. Like I don't know. I have a hard time thinking that this was an accident.
Me too. Listen, that's the problem. But God forbid that you say a conspiracy theory now. Now they, you get, they put you in that Laura Ingraham camp,
right?
Which I'm not in. I think she's a nut job, but you mean to okay, I was sitting here on the TV. I saw the president shit on China over and over and over again, and even made me uncomfortable. I'm talking about when he was running and when he was first elected.
Right.
And then 4 years later, we have a pandemic that came from China. I'm not supposed to question.
Right.
I'm not supposed to say, well, wait a second. So that is very funny. Yeah.
Yeah,
I have to say, I'm not. I don't know though. I think we have to focus on the positives. There's been so much good for me in my life that's come out of the pandemic. Being alone, home with my family, has not been bad. I was a comedian that was on the road like 22 weeks a year, and I'm home with my son. I'm home with my husband. I've never spent this much time with my husband in my life. It's unreal.
How's that go?
It's, listen, I know I picked the right person. We're not killing each other yet. So that's a good thing.
We ran out of things to talk about after like the first week. We were like done. We're like, oh God, this is gonna be long.
And the other thing that surprised me is I really didn't have women friends for a long time because I traveled so much. It was hard to have the consistency. And so, that's back in my life. I really love that. That's really nice. And I like I said, I have developed some other skills, with the Zoom and whatever. So I'm trying to look at the positive, and maybe it's all for the best. Mm-hmm. Look, if we end up with a woman vice president who's going to be president, let's be honest.
Right. Yes, that is correct.
I'm okay with that. Listen, if this is my lifetime, I just want to see it before I die, a woman president. And maybe this is the way it's going to go.
Mm-hmm. Yes. For even forgetting about what political party that you're in, I think we can all agree on that one. It's like, because it's not like women haven't been involved in politics. I mean, and the percentage has grown over the years. Like, why?
I don't know that we can. You and I can agree. But I mean, don't you remember when Hillary was running, there were all these people saying, I don't think a woman can lead. I mean,
Right. I can't even, right. I can't comprehend that. But I mean, I just think that's a ridiculous statement. And again, and this isn't to get into like male bashing, but sometimes, sometimes I do have fantasies of thinking that, and I love men, it's not about that. I do have fantasies like, would we really have all of these conflicts and have had all of these wars if women were in charge? Now, that's not to say that girls don't fight, okay? My father, I'll never forget telling me, because he was a teacher, and he was one of the toughest guys in around, he said, the scariest fights are girls in middle school. So like, I'm not, going to say it's all innocent, but on a high level, would we have had so much conflict? It would have been nice to, I wish there was like a time machine to like sort of see that.
Well, I'd like to find out.
Yes. Right.
That's where I'm at. I'd like to find out.
No,
I mean, I know what it takes to make a baby, 2 of them, and I'm not so interested in throwing them away, because every child to me is my, could have been my child. So I can't imagine sending them into war like that. First of all, that is all over anyway. I mean, no wars right now are going to be fought that way. Everything's going to be fought on the, with horrific things with taking out electrical grids and stuff. I mean, it's all going to be a horrible thing. But I think that women, because they create life, maybe value life a hair more. That's all. I don't know. That's my theory.
I think the anger mechanism is, again, I'm not saying every woman, but for most, I think is a little bit different. We have that compassionate part of us, mostly. So I definitely think it would have been different, but we're here now and we're trying to change it. And, and you want to be fair as well. So you're a New Yorker, native New Yorker, as am I, but, and God bless you for having a place to go in the Berkshires. As a matter of fact,
I rented the cheapest place I could afford.
Good for you. Good for you. And it's good to get, I mean, listen, even without a pandemic, it's good to get out of the city, especially in the summertime. That's sort of like a normal thing anyway, but especially now I envied I work out at a dance studio up on the Upper East Side, and, all the women went to their Hamptons homes, and I was like, oh, I wish I had something. I don't care. It doesn't have to be much, but, although we're actually going to go away tomorrow for a couple of weeks. So I'm really like just looking forward to that.
Good.
But, I don't know how that, how this is all going to sort of like turn out when we're back in September, but New York City, for me, I'm heartbroken as to what has happened. And I say this all the time, the retail had started to change before the pandemic. I mean, the rents, people internet shopping, I mean, that was sort of happening. So to say it's all the pandemic is a lie, but now
it tipped the hand for a lot that were hanging on.
And it's just like, the city now, and I got to tell you, I haven't gone down.
Unrecognizable, Ellen.
Yes.
It's going to be unrecognizable. When we come back in the fall, it's, if Maison Kaiser can't make it.
Right.
Pan Quotidien, which was in every corner, is going out of business.
Right.
I mean, I don't even know what can afford to go in. Is it all going to be banks?
Right.
And cell phone providers? That's it.
Right. there's a little Target in my neighborhood. And that survived, obviously, like those types of things. The Duane Reads, even when there was a Duane Read on every corner, those are closing up, like unheard of. So all the little mom and pop stores that have been here, we're talking 20, 30, 40 years. I mean, families, generations. It's like mind-blowing. And I haven't really ventured downtown much, but I know that Soho is like demolished. They had all that looting. I mean, that was just incredible. That whole thing, and making it as if this was the social justice. They went up, and I know you have to agree with me on this. They went to Fordham Road. They lit the place on fire. The entrepreneurs of those shops are all African American and Hispanic. What message were you sending?
No, it's gross.
It's horrible. It's just now. Chicago was sort of like the latest, and it doesn't. First of all, it completely negates all of the protesting and sort of the good work and hopefully some of the progress that will be made. So now you've negated it all. You've negated trying to make those, those wrongs right.
Yeah, but focusing on that isn't isn't the goal here. We have to remember that always comes with the territory whenever there's major revolution. Think about it. I mean, the let them eat cake revolution. You don't think people, took advantage of that? Everybody takes advantage.
I thought we were past that, honestly. As humans, I thought we had progressed a little bit more, but obviously not. But I mean, just could you get back to the city that you and I, our home base. I'm worried. I don't know what's, the homeless situation is a horror, and there had to be a solution. There was never like a solution. Like there needs to be some type of solution. Now
I have the solution. You want to hear my solution?
Yeah, absolutely.
Everyone who owns in New York City that doesn't live there needs to pay a surcharge. There needs to be a surcharge, and that has to go to the MTA, that has to go to the schools, that has to go to small business associations, because maybe it's changing, but for the past 20 years, the Russians, the Chinese, the Brazilians, the Israelis, everyone who buys, in Midtown, those crazy things that don't live there. I mean, they're never there.
Yes,
they're never there. But
mm-hmm.
Right. It's a solid investment. Why? Because it's the most desirable place in the world to own property in New York. Well, people that don't live here, people that aren't part of the community, they need to pay a surcharge. And I also think they need to go back to that tax. Remember years ago, they used to tax people who live in Connecticut and New Jersey who come into work. They need to pay a tax here. Mm. You know what I mean?
No, I definitely hear what you mean. And I agree. That's a great point, that there are a lot of
investment properties
on Billionaire Row that people don't live here. And I completely agree with that. I don't know. I just pray something's going to some miracle, something's going to turn around. I mean, obviously the longer this goes, the worse, the worse that gets, and the worse that it, for it to turn around. I
know this is not funny. This has become kind of a sad commentary on New York. Everyone keeps saying, listen, New York is always going to be New York. It's going to come back. Got to remember, people come to the city to go to Broadway shows. People come to the city for that marathon. People come to the city to dine in the best restaurants in the world. So if we take that away, it will die on the vine.
Right, which it has been. So I'm not quite. I don't know how much longer it can sustain. And I'm not a fan of this mayor. I think I'll give a little leeway because this was an unusual situation. I mean, I really try to be a fair person regardless of, kind of where I am. I was an accountant, so I try to look at things very financially and all, but it is really gotten to the point where it's almost like very czar-like, like they're almost in love. They're drunk with the power and sort of like closing these businesses down because they served, 40 people as opposed to 20 people. I mean, it's just really completely gotten out of hand. And then, but it's okay to have all of these protests and riots and all this kind of stuff. I mean, I think the priorities are very screwed up. It's, whatever the rule is, it's got to be for everybody, not just the group that that you hate and the group that you like. But I'm not in love with this mayor. He doesn't feel very pro-business. And now the big thing is going to be with the schools. That's
also, don't you feel like there's such duplicity? Because like his whole thing is he cares about the poor, but somehow no money ever gets to the poor. No money. You see about these projects. They still don't have hot water. They still don't have heat. The elevators don't work.
Yeah.
There's something. You're right. There's something. I've always, talking about conspiracy theories. I've always believed that there is total corruption in the MTA. Like with all that cash that comes in all the time, I just figure at the end of the day, someone's like, your kid's got a birthday party. You take 20, you take 30. I'm taking 500 because we're having a party. I mean, that's the only way to explain some of these things. It has to be corruption.
So there's so much skimming. There's so much taking off. There's so much under the table. I mean, listen, even all the politicians, and again, across the board, and I know we're like kind of going off, but what they start out they start out with this I mean, being in local government is a small, like a salary. I mean, even as a congressperson and senator, and they wind up multi-millionaires years later. Like, how did that happen? Again, I used to be an accountant. Like it just doesn't, all of it just doesn't add up. I mean, you can see how rich de Blasio is going to be after this whole thing is done. It's just horrible. And the mayor and the governor hate each other, so that's like a whole nother thing. But the schools, I mean, this is we're already in mid-August. I mean, it's gonna happen like that. Your son is in what grade? Your son
he's going to be a junior.
Oh my God.
11th grade. And he's in a small private school. So right now they're saying he's going to go 100% in-person learning.
Now, and how do you feel about that? How did you feel? Like, so you got your comedy career, in a state of flux. You've got a son in high school. What's, how did you deal with all that and all that home learning and homeschooling, which is basically what it was?
I don't have it bad like these people with elementary school or even middle school learning. My son is in high school, so the remote learning was actually classes, because like I said, he's in a small school. They actually had a teacher who taught the 12 kids at one time. It was, they only had school from 9 to 12, Monday through Friday. My son is incredibly social. He needs his friends so badly. So from 2 to 7 every night, they're on this thing called House Party, another app, in case you don't know about this one, House Party. They're on a house party. They talk, they play games. They don't even talk. They don't even look at each other. They have the phone like this on the thing, and they're playing video games. And so they try to stay as connected as they can. I signed him up with approval to go back to in-person learning. And I'll tell you why. It's easier to opt out than to opt in. You can't, once you've agreed to do remote learning, you can't go back. So if they shut the schools down in 2 weeks, which, it looks like that's what's going to happen, or by end of September, it's probably going to go back to remote. Let him at least get 3 weeks with his friends. In terms of his health, I'm not worried about his health. I have immunity. I got the antibodies because I had it in February.
Oh, you did? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So I'm not worried about me. And I think my husband also had it because, he sleeps with me.
Right.
It's funny. Rufus, my son did tested also for the antibodies. He got negative, but I think with kids sometimes the antibody test is not accurate because their system regenerates so quickly. The antibodies may have sort of come through. Yeah, I got it because I'm a comedian and I work on cruise ships, and I picked up a ship in February in Spain, and I did a crossing back to Puerto Rico, and I knew I had it when I got home. I knew I had it.
Just going back for a second with all of the travel and stuff. So how did you, I mean, now your son is a junior, is a little more self-sufficient, but
right.
Again, when I met you, he had there was a car seat in the back.
Yeah.
How did you manage all that? Did you have help? Or was your husband? I mean, how did you do all that? You're not home.
Right. For the first 5 years, we did have help. We had somebody. And because my career was still hot, as Michelle Ballard and I like to say, I had heat then. I still had some heat.
I love
so
that.
When I had heat, I had help. And then when my son started elementary school, there was a period where I was really able to stay home more because I had a radio show with Maureen Langan.
Mm-hmm.
So I was home a lot for that. And then I had the off-Broadway show, which kept me, that was a year being in the city that I was able to sustain and pay for my my lifestyle, my living. And then when I was on the road with that show and with other things, I mostly did Thursday, leave Wednesday, come home Sunday, leave Thursday, come home Monday. I have a husband. Mm-hmm. And he wanted this kid who I didn't need a kid at 42. I had this kid for him. So anytime people give me a hard time, I'm like, he has a father, and the father, really wanted this kid, so he's going to take care of it.
That's so.
Yeah. and I'm very lucky. I have two sisters that I'm really close to, and they pinch hit it a lot, particularly my sister that I'm closest in age with. She, she's not married, she's gay. She had a lot of time for my son.
I have two sisters also. They don't talk to each other. But anyway, anyway, it's nice. It's great.
Well, somebody's always in a fight. That's for sure. But the youngest sister settles all the fights.
Uh-huh.
I'm the worst because the lesbian sister has no sense of humor, but I can't help make jokes. She'll say, are you going to let me know what time we're having dinner? And I write back, no, I'm going to publish it in the papers. You'll have to find it. You know what I mean? She has no, that will send her into a tizzy. And then the little sister has to go, why are you doing that? She has no sense of humor. And I'm like, because it's the stupidest question. Am I going to let her know what time? No, I'm going to make her guess.
Isn't it? So you're three girls. So there's three of you. Right? Oh, that's me too. And then you're the middle?
No, oldest.
Me too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. That's so funny. My middle sister is I don't know why I'm hesitating. I'm just because she's not going to, because they don't support my career. So like I can say whatever I want with them. They'll never hear it. They'll never. They still ask me how like how tax season's going. Like my whole family.
Right. Okay.
I'm only doing this 20 years. But anyway.
How about this? Are you still doing the comedy? How do you like that one?
Comedy thing. That's so funny. Oh my God. But my middle sister is ditzy, and she's got a good side, but she's got a very me. She's very dependent, very codependent. Every time she pulls up, it's like it's a panting led by, can you do me a favor? So that's her. And she lives near me, and she's got two kids. Also, one is in high school. She's evil. And then the other one is a lawyer, so she thinks she knows everything. Very hard to disagree with her. She's got three kids. Very smart, hard worker. I mean, she works like a dog. I give her that. But boy, oh boy, she's very tough. She's right. She's righteous. You can't, it's black and white, and it's, so anyway, and then they had a fight, and they haven't spoken in a year and a half, so it's fun, it's great. Anyway, I went off topic. I do want to talk about, before I let you go, your fantastic TED Talk that I got to see. So you and I had done John Fugelsang's radio show, and you had mentioned it, and so I definitely wanted
Thank you for watching it.
Oh my God, and then you were coming on, I'm like, oh my God, I had to watch it. I'm going to watch it again. I mean, just talk about it. Was, first of all, you looked beautiful. You were so inspirational. It was so good. I implore everybody to watch it. It's 10 minutes, 11 minutes. It's just fantastic. But just talk about it. Talk about how you felt.
Well, I think if you watch the TED Talk, I think a lot of things make sense. Why I became a comedian is very clear from that TED Talk, but more importantly, why comedy wasn't intimidating for me. Because after, I was in there's no way of skirting around it. I was in a domestic violence situation with my first marriage. So when I went to do comedy and I was dealing with all these asshole guys, no asshole guy was as bad as my ex. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And ultimately, I think it made me strong enough to handle being in this business. You have to have such a sense of laser beam focus to make it in this business, and you can't let guys, who are there to intimidate you, stop you. And I know that because of my first marriage, I was able to do that. I still wasn't able to handle being roasted. That's another reason why, Ellen, why I couldn't do roasts. I already was roasted. I was roasted for 9 years.
Right.
You're asshole. You're shit. You're not funny. You're not talented. You have no skills. You're ugly. You're fat. I mean, everything. I'm going to sign up for this now. That's why I couldn't do roasts.
Right. Yeah, no, it's a very different genre. And that's why the people that do it, listen, it's like stand-up comedy. You have to love it to want to do it. So you have to love that to want to do that. But do you think that had you not been in that situation, you would have gravitated to comedy? Or, I mean, were you kind of going on that path anyway? Or do you think this really, because you
Well,
had
I'll tell you a secret that I don't usually talk about. But when I was 19,
Mhm.
I tried stand-up comedy, actually in the comic strip. You know who the MC was? Richie.
Oh my gosh.
He has no idea, just so you know. He has no idea it was me. And I had your classic beginner's luck. The first time I performed, I killed, or whatever. I was good that they prevails. And then I bombed 5 times in a row afterwards, like each time. Bombed and bombed. And I mean, it got to the point where I would go to open mics and people would say, Cory, Kahaney, and I would just pretend I wasn't there. I just, they'd have the list and they'd read Cory, and I couldn't get up. I had terrible stage fright after that. And so I didn't do stand-up for 10 years. But I tried doing stand-up when I was in my first marriage. I didn't have most of my confidence was so beaten out of me to do anything with that.
And it wasn't your time. I mean, we have to sort of leave it to the universe and faith, and that, this is when you were supposed to do it. I mean, I can relate to that in the sense I didn't do it till later on anyway. Again, I became a CPA, like just totally like the opposite.
Yeah.
So,
it gets to the point though, Ellen, and maybe you've had this experience. It's just when too many people tell you, oh my God, you're so funny, you should be a comedian. You have to kind of try it.
Right.
And then if there's nothing else, I emphasize this, if there's nothing else that makes you happy, then become stand-up.
Right. Right.
But if other things make you happy, if you enjoy doing, sketches or funny, funny articles or funny writing or something like that, do that, because nothing will break your heart more than stand-up comedy. But nothing is more fulfilling. So that's, that's the thing.
It's a weird thing to explain, and you don't really know what it's like unless you're in it. And so that's why I think too, we and not to get all kumbaya, but most of us, even if we don't know each other that well, because we have that connection, we get it, so we can bond on a without spending a ton of time with each other, because we're going through this same experience, and the longer that you're in it, the more of those same experiences that you have. So, you and I can talk shop for hours, even though we only worked together once. We can talk shop for hours, and we can relate to each other's situations, like as if we were there. But I tell people too, you have to want to do this, or else you need help. You need psychiatric help, because it is super, super hard. You have to want to be on that stage. And there's so much of the behind the scenes, the getting the gig, the whole thing, submitting for the gig, getting that person to hire you, getting them to know you, putting your name out there, building an act, writing, that whole process doesn't happen in a vacuum. So it's a very, very, very hard business, but you are very well respected. I love your career. I love what you do. That TED Talk, I can't get it out of my head. I mean, it was so good. It was so really hit me as well, because although I didn't have that same situation, but I grew up in a very Greek dramatic home. It's always some 911 going on and whatever. And I realized that later, that I started to use humor to deflect, to get myself kind of through it. And I had to make a joke about it, or else it was that or drugs. And I'm not a drug person. It's just like, I'm too much of a control freak. I don't want I don't want something else taking over my mind. So I had to find something. And it really hit close to home. But what do you have? We're going to get out of this at some point, but so what do you have coming up? you've never written a book, right? You said you did a one-woman show, but you've never written a book, have you?
I have not finished a book.
Okay. I understand that. I
have not finished a book. I mean, right now I'm very excited about this project I do with, I have a show that I do once a month with Karen Bergreen and a woman named Cynthia Kaplan. Cynthia Kaplan is a brilliant songwriter, and she does very funny, very feminist, very political songs that are very in your face. And so we're doing a variety show. We do it once a month. It's called Lean Over, sort of a play on Lean In, you know, the Sheryl Sandberg stuff. And we always have a celebrity comic on. Like last month, we had Jim Gaffigan. Last month, the last one we had Tom Cotter. Jim Gaffigan is doing our next one. And we do sketches, and I've been doing a character called Mother Nature, which you can catch on YouTube if you want. It's really fun. It's like me getting a chance to be a puppet, because I can say anything in this character. I can say anything. So I'm invested in that show. That show is really a lot of fun for me. I'm launching this, this is the first time I'm mentioning, I'm launching this thing for corporate meetings. It's like to combat Zoom fatigue. Me and another woman we are the percolators. So you can hire us if you've got a meeting that you want just somebody to come in for 15 minutes and bump up the energy and boost the fun. We come in and then we leave you to, be inspired and create whatever.
Oh, I love that. That's great. You listen, I mean, necessity is the mother of invention. So we got to come up with all of these other ideas in this box that, in our little space.
Yeah.
And figure out how to bring the entertainment to you. So that's great. Your website is CoryKahaney.com.
Yes.
CoryKahaney. I have to tell you, I love your website. It's clean. It's neat. There was something of it. It's almost like it's in order. I'm like, I love this website. It's great. I love the color. I love your headshot. Everything is there. You also teach comedy. If anybody wants to take a class, maybe do a private coaching. You've got clips there. The TED Talk is on there. Absolutely watch that. And give us all your social media as well.
Yeah, so it's at Cory Cajones. But basically any kind, if you just Google Cory Kahaney or you look up Cory Kahaney on Twitter, it's at Cory Cajones on Twitter. The Instagram is Cory Kahaney. It's nice to have an unusual name because nobody else has it.
Yeah, Cajones it could be Greek, so just so you know, but very Greek.
It's Cajones. Because okay. When I was a catering person, people used to call me Mr. Cajones.
That's so funny.
All right, my darling.
Thank you so much for doing this. I absolutely adore you. I am Ellen Karas. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Greek Chick Comic, and my Facebook is Ellen Karas Greek Goddess Comedy. Also my website, ellenkaras.com, ELLENKARIS.com. This show and all my previous podcasts are on there as well. Thank you so much. Till next time, Cory, I adore you. You're the best. Thank you so much. Enjoy.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure, Ellen. Best of luck to you.
Oh, thank you. Bye.
I have 2 kids. I have a daughter from my first marriage because I like souvenirs. And I have a son from my second marriage because I lost a bet. Everything that I have ever done in this business, I have done with integrity. I never used my feminine charms to get ahead. Now that I've reached a point in my career where I would be willing to, no one's interested. I am not saying that you should play the tramp card. Because I know I have tried to play the tramp card at this stage in life, only to have the guy say, no, this is expired.